guys, it's Tina. Welcome back to my channel. So I'm going to try something completely different that I haven't ever kind of done. Well, I haven't ever done it before, let alone on video. So I have been very inspired by, I've been watching quite a bit of Ayozie's videos lately, and also Artymaze. Sorry, let me just pull my kind of setup out there a little bit more. And Artymaze, and obviously they're both very artistic and kind of actually really, you know, get stuck in with their paints and their kind of artists' materials and things like that. So I have been inspired to attempt this and kind of give it a try myself. So I've just brought along here, these are just some really cheap and cheerful kind of watercolour paints that I've got here. I've had them for a really long time, just when kind of me and the kids have mucked about sometimes and, you know, done a bit of painting. And I've also got some watercolour pencils here, which again, I've just had them for a really long time, but actually they're really, you know, I really do like them. And obviously I've just got a little pot of water, so, you know, and my brush. And I just thought what we'll do is have a bit of a play around. Really taking inspiration mainly from a video from Ayozie where she really painted the most beautiful flower. Now, I'm no artist, so I really, you know, or certainly not that kind of artist. So I cannot claim to be able to paint a flower, you know, freehand or anything else. So I am going to kind of adapt this and hopefully kind of, you know, provide a bit of inspiration for, you know, you guys who may be similar to me in that you wouldn't be able to actually kind of paint your own things, but want to play with paints. So I thought we could kind of have a play, make a beautiful background, and then, excuse me reaching, I have brought along some stamps, and I just thought we will get creative with some stamps. You know, I've got these flower ones and we can kind of colour some in and, you know, use them like that. And then she obviously tore hers out and used it in a collage and made some collage pages. So that's going to be what I'm going to attempt. Again, I don't, you know, this may not work. Don't claim to be an expert. I haven't really got a plan in my head of how this is going to look, but, you know, let's get started and see where it takes us. So this is just a page that I have torn out from my artist's kind of sketchbook, again, that I've just had for a really long time, that me and the kids sometimes kind of, we've got a hill kind of up near us and we sometimes take our sketch pads and kind of go and do some painting. So I've just torn out a page, and all I'm going to do, take my water, take my brush, I'm going to do a couple of different colour backgrounds. So I'm going to start, I think, with maybe kind of some blue, and I'm just going to literally, oh, there goes that word again, literally kind of dab it onto the page, just showing myself up completely now in my kind of ignorant ways of, you know, using kind of these types of things. I've got some green here that I'm just going to kind of mix in. Some different green there. I mean, really, I'm just trying to create a little bit of colour and a bit of interest on the page. And, you know, I mean, Ayozie was very calm and very relaxed in hers, and it was very relaxing to watch. Unfortunately, I don't really possess that kind of gene, and I seem to do everything kind of at a million miles an hour normally, and, you know, find it a bit of a struggle to kind of slow down and do things at slow or in slow time. So I'm really going to try and kind of take inspiration from her and, you know, try and do this in a calm and, you know, really relaxing way. And I'm just literally, you know, just mixing these four kind of colours, the greens and the blues, like that. You know, I am literally just kind of playing here and just, you know, just literally forming patterns on the page, really. I'm going to end up obviously with a very soggy page here, but, you know, those colours just look really pretty together, don't they? So I'm going to kind of take it to the edges, because what I'm hoping is that I'm going to end up with, you know, quite a big space that I can get quite a few stamped images on, that we can then kind of tear and use in, of several collage kind of arrangements. So, you know, rather than kind of just paint a small area, I'm just going to try and paint quite a big area that then I can use for quite a few different kind of projects, really. So, you know, just kind of going over it just like that. So then that's that kind of half. And then what I might do here, just going to turn the page around just so it's easier for me, really. But I'm going to now start kind of mixing in some yellow with the green more, so that then when I start kind of working on my collage, I've got some other colours on this same piece of paper. So I probably am going to kind of resist using the blue here. Now, I have to say, Artymaze, I mean, she obviously is a very, very talented artist and very creative. And she's very brave. She kind of does this type of thing, and then suddenly she'll put pink in to the mix, which, you know, I don't think I would be quite brave enough to do. But who knows? Maybe I will experiment a bit and kind of do something like that, because it kind of works really well. And, you know, I guess that's the kind of point of this, isn't it? Is just trying to, I don't know, push yourself out of your comfort zone and kind of do something completely different and completely that you wouldn't normally do. And as she rightly says, you know, if you don't like it, you just paint over it. You just, you know, you don't have to go with everything that you've done. So I'm just going to pop quite a bit of yellow on there. The yellow, sadly, is not really coming out particularly strong. You know, it looks quite lime greeny. Again, that's probably just my awful method that I'm using here, but put a bit of yellow up here. We just go for a little bit more green. Like that. A bit more down there. So I think, you know, for me, not being an artist, you know, that for me is enough on that page. So I'm going to set that to one side to dry, and I'm just going to tear out a second sheet, because whilst I've got the, you know, the paints out and everything else, I'm going to do a second sheet which is kind of more pinks and blues and lilacs, those kinds of shades. So I'm just going to kind of pop that there to dry. I've actually got visitors just arrived, so I'm going to have to go in a second. So hopefully I will just manage to kind of do this one. I'm just going to top up my water, just a drop there, and then just going to I'm going to pop on some pink, whoops, to get started. I mean, watercolours are really fun, aren't they? Because, you know, kind of, they really can be quite dark or quite subtle, kind of however you want to kind of build them up, which, you know, is really, really nice and kind of really interesting to use. So we're just kind of, and I'm just going to mix in a bit of blue there. It's my sister has just arrived with her boys. She's got two boys. One is a similar age to my daughter, and then her other son is a similar age to my eldest son. So they've just quickly popped round. So I can hear already the two younger ones kind of playing a little bit and asking what they've been up to. So there we go. You know, but I'm not going to be very long. So, but I just thought I would get all this done in the hopes that it would then be drying ready for, you know, once it's dry, I can come and just switch the camera on again and we can do the next stage of the project, you know, some stamping. I mean, I'm sure that lots of you are probably fantastic and can kind of, you know, freehand draw things and paint things, but I mean, I certainly can't. And, you know, it was so beautiful what she created. And I just thought, oh, if only I could actually create something like that. And I thought, well, to be honest, you know, oh, I need more water, sorry. I seem to have dried up very quickly. There's no reason why I couldn't just create a similar effect, you know, but just using stamps. So I just thought, you know, just come and kind of play. And also, I don't really think I've done any kind of collaging particularly, other than the Franken flower pages. So I thought it would be quite fun to make a couple of collage pages, you know, with you guys. So, and you know, if I can obviously kind of provide any sort of inspiration, then all the better. You know, that would be fantastic. But of course there might be no inspirational parts to this video, but you know, hopefully we'll have a bit of fun. So, and strangely enough, I mean, for some reason I keep on thinking of my birdcage stamp, which I've used before on videos, and it's one of my favourite stamps. I've had it for a really long time. It's just a Craft stamp. For some reason I'm really feeling that. I'm not sure, but stamping it maybe in pink, on this collage page. So just going to turn this around now. So yeah, that keeps on entering my head, and it has been for a couple of days. So hopefully once this is dry, I'll have a look through my ink pads and see what colour pads you know, we could use for that. Oops. And as I say, I mean, that's just something that's gone through my head, but it might look utter rubbish, you know, when I come to stamp it. But that's the image that keeps on rolling through my mind. So there we go. Yeah, I don't know when I will actually load this video up, because I keep saying this lately, but I'm really trying to kind of get a few videos in the bag. I've got a really busy time coming up at work where I'm going to be away from my shop and my camera for, you know, certainly a week. So I would love to have a few videos that I can upload still, you know, so as it appears that I'm not away, if you see what I mean. So, you know, anything I talk about might be completely irrelevant by the time I actually upload this, but it's actually the Easter holidays at the moment, you know, which is why obviously the children are home, but it may well not be by the time that I upload the video. Right, so that's that. Now, as I say, I'm no artist, so very basic techniques that I have used here, just literally dragging the brush across. I'm sure that, you know, there's far more adventurous ways of painting the background. And, you know, maybe if this works out nicely, we could kind of try some more together using some other techniques. But for the moment, this is probably good enough. So I'm going to leave these two to dry, go and make my sister a cup of tea, and then I will come back to you and we'll try and have a bit of a play with some stamps. So I will see you again soon. Right, so I'm back again now. My watercoloured background pages have dried now, so they, you know, feel all lovely and kind of dusty. So I've got here a whole bunch of ink pads that I have dug out. I've got loads of greens. I've obviously gone through a phase of buying greens. So those, in fact, that's also a green. So I've got lots of different greens there. And then I've got a couple of blues, and then I've got a pink. So, you know, lots of things here to play with. I have dug out also a few stamps that I thought would be good. And obviously I've got some paper and things like that for if we want to do some collage. So what we'll do is just get kind of randomly stamping around on our watercolour backgrounds, I think, first of all. So what I might do is do the bird cage, because that's the one that I've had kind of going through my head for the last couple of days. So for some reason I'm feeling pink for the bird cage. I know that sounds very strange, but that's just what has been kind of calling to me. So I'm going to try it out. I've got a couple of scraps of just paper here to be able to try things before I stamp them. I'm going to move this sheet with the blues and the greens out of the way, because obviously I'm going to stamp the bird cage hopefully on this coloured page here. So just going to lightly stamp, or lightly ink the stamp, to see how this is going to come out, because obviously, you know, I prefer really stamping with the stays on ink pads, particularly with stamps like this, you know, the unmounted stamps. And you know, this one I've had for a really long time, so it's lost the ability to cling, and even kind of washing it in soapy water I don't think would kind of bring it back really. So now, if you can see that some of the stamp has not kind of picked up there on this rough paper. Now, personally, I don't mind that. And that's something that's, you know, that seems to happen kind of with this particular stamp quite often, you know, because it's quite a long kind of stamp. Personally, I don't mind that. I'm not going to kind of get worried about that happening. So, you know, I'm perfectly happy with that kind of effect. So just going to, again, press my stamp all over the ink pad. Now, I don't really tend to very often do the entire stamp here. If I want to show you how that looks, that's it in its entirety. So, you know, we could kind of stamp the entire stamp. So, well, let's go for that. Let's stamp the entire stamp, because I mean, just because we've stamped it, we don't have to obviously use that in our collage piece. So I'm just going over the entire length of the stamp. I'm going to move these pages out of the way, and then I'm going to press this down here on the watercolour page. Like that. So, you know, I mean, I just think that is such a beautiful stamp, and you know, it wasn't mounted or anything, but still it just looks so pretty, doesn't it? So really like that. Now we can just kind of leave that as it is. I'm always inclined to kind of go for more things, but maybe I should kind of try and stop myself from doing that this time. Now there's some birds in here. So I'm just going to kind of take a couple of these out. Now I haven't even used the entire bunch of these stamps, to be perfectly honest. You know, I've used odd ones, but I tend to kind of always use the same old ones really. So I'm going to take one of these little birds and see how he stamps. So I've just bought a block along, oops, for this one, because it's quite tiny, so I would have a problem kind of holding on to that really. Now I'm just going to use the pink just to see how he stamps, whether he stamps well and nicely. Oh look, he's a little edged one. For some reason I thought he was going to be filled in. So I'm not sure whether I like him or not really. What I might do is try him using kind of a couple of the colours to see how he would look if we like popped him in the bird cage. Now to me, he looks a bit cheap on there. Does that kind of make sense? I don't know why, but for some reason he doesn't really kind of do it for me. So I'm not going to have him in there. I'm just going to have a look at the other stamps that are kind of contained on here. So maybe I won't put any other of these little stamps here. But what we could do is kind of just stamp a couple of other things around that we're going to maybe use for our collage. So again, I don't think I've ever used this particular stamp. I mean, I've had these stamps for a long, long time, but there just have been certain ones that I, you know, have used, certain ones that I haven't. So we'll just see what that one looks like. So that's quite a pretty stamp. So I hope that, let me just check whether I'm actually in frame here. Yeah. So I might just stamp that kind of maybe over here. All I'm trying to do is obviously have a few pieces that I can then tear out to use kind of as we want to use them. Now I'm going to see what he looks like in the other blue, whether it kind of looks vastly different. So I might as well just go for him here. Just so we've got kind of a variety of things to use, really. So I'll pop that on back. I'll just pop those out the way for a minute. Now, here I've got these flower stamps. And again, strangely enough, I mean, I've had these for, again, a really long time. But I've tended to use the same old stamps. I've used this wheelbarrow quite often. On birthday cards and things like that. I'm not sure that I've ever used these big flowers, so you know, I might try one of those big flowers. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take that one off. Again, I'll pop that on the block so that it's kind of a bit easier to stamp. I'm going to use my black StazOn here. I just want to see kind of how that looks. So I'm just going to stamp it on the page. And then what we can do is obviously fill that in with the watercolour pencils. So I might stamp that. Let's stamp that down here. So I'm just going to stamp that down here. And we can obviously kind of colour that in. So that's where obviously kind of, you know, having a bit of kind of artistic skills would have been really great for this. But obviously I don't have, so I'm just going to kind of do that. Now this has got some little kind of flower borders here as well. They're really pretty. So I have used those before, but I might just use a couple of those. Again, I'm just going to check them out. Make sure they're stamping nicely before I use them. And I'm just going to stamp them, trying to obviously get as much as I can out of the page. Unfortunately, I haven't stamped that very well, so I'll just do another one. You know, I'm trying to get as much as I can covered on the background. So there we go. And then also beside me, I've got a bunch of other stamps that kind of I really like. So obviously I've got a little butterfly stamp, so we can use that one. So again, we could use this, you know, in either a colour or a black. So I'll show you kind of in the black, that's it. And if we wanted it in a colour, that's how it would kind of look in a colour. We could mix the colours. Oops, it didn't really kind of work that well, but kind of mix it like that. That's not really kind of working very well. Let me fold that over so we can see a bit better. I've got obviously the cherry pink here, or the picked raspberry this is. So we could try that. So that's got some of the blue still in there. Now I quite like that kind of effect. I think that's really pretty. So can you see that? For me, that looks really pretty. So I might just try and get that effect a bit here on the page. And again, I mean, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's not worked brilliantly. So we can just go again. Oops, I think there's something stuck on there now. So again, I'm just going to try that here. So that one worked much better. I think there was something hanging off of the stamp in the last one. So I quite like that effect when you kind of mix up the, you know, the different colour inks. So, and obviously I've got this beautiful kind of jade greeny colour. So we'll just see how that would look. So what we could do is kind of mix that up. Oh, how pretty does that look? So I might sort of pop the green at the top, and then we can kind of stamp that here. Doesn't that look pretty? So, you know, just to kind of mix it up really and kind of do a few different things. I've got typewriter stamp here, so we could stamp that. I'm running out of space here, so just check that that's kind of stamping nicely. There we go. So we could just kind of stamp that here, like that. And then I've also got those little butterflies that I really like using these. So I'm sure you've seen me use these before. So again, what we could do is kind of mix them so we've got kind of different colours going on with them. So we could pick up a bit of blues and a bit of the pink, and then we could put them down there. So, you know, they look really pretty then. Okay, so we've got a few different ones on there, and then actually what else I thought we could stamp is we could have this gorgeous tree. So again, I don't think I've ever used this tree before, and my stamp block unfortunately is obviously not really big enough for the tree. So, you know, we're going to kind of improvise a bit here. So I'm just going to take my piece of paper, see how this will go. Now, as I say, I mean, I've never even used this tree stamp, so I don't know how this is going to go. But if I just kind of ink the top of the tree, and then what I wondered was whether we might be able to ink with a brown stays on, ink the trunk kind of separately. So I'm going to try it on this paper. Like that. I mean, that doesn't look too bad, does it? So, you know, maybe like that. So I'm going to try that on the watercolour page. So just ink up the trunk first, put the lid on, and then I'm going to ink up the tree, which we can kind of do like this. Like that, and then we're going to just press this down. We have it on the quite a pink bit as a kind of contrast, really. You know, like keen not to do the obvious, i.e. over here is quite blue, but that feels quite an obvious thing to do to me. So trying to kind of be a bit more adventurous and be a bit more out of my comfort zone. So I mean, it didn't ink perfectly, if I'm honest, but it was okay. So I'm going to just pop the lids on the inks for a moment and pop them out of the way a bit. Actually, and the one that I didn't do yet was that beautiful frame. Actually, and I also brought along a pocket watch, so might just do a couple more. And then what we'll do is probably ink up the green after we play with this sheet of paper, mainly because I'm sure we're going to learn some valuable things kind of whilst we're doing this. So if I just bring this back now, I'm very tempted to do the frame again in a completely kind of random colour. So I'm just going to see how that would look. So just wondering what that would look like on there. Maybe not great. Just trying to be a bit more adventurous really. So let's be adventurous. You know, because again, I mean, there's no right or wrong, is there? And you know, if we don't like things, as Artymaze kind of said, you know, you can just cover things up. I'm just going to use my stamp block to kind of press that down now. There we go. So that's quite pretty, isn't it? And then the final piece actually got the pocket watch, which I think I'm going to just do in the dark blue. So again, ink that up. Just trying to tidy up as I go here, but I'm probably not doing a great job of doing that. Right, so that's the pocket watch, which looks really nice. So just going to ink that up. We'll just pop that there in the corner. Like that. Oh, how pretty does that look? Okay, so are we confident that we've got everything that we want? Right, we have more or less, but there was just one other thing that I thought we would do actually. I've got my favourite script stamp, and I just thought we'll stamp a few bits of script. Not that I seem to have much area left actually, but that we could use obviously around just for some extra kind of pieces. So I'm just going to pop that there. I'll just literally stamp a couple of bits. We only want tiny bits because these are just to have extra bits to tear, you know, to tear out. So, you know, they don't have to be very big bits. There we go. So that will do. So we've got a whole variety of things on here. Now, you know, as I say, I mean, this is way out of my comfort zone here, and I'm really, really winging this. So please bear with me, because I'm sure that I'm not kind of, you know, doing this in any kind of methodical way or anything else. This is totally kind of just playing for me, you know, with completely and utterly random things and things that I don't normally kind of venture into really. So let me clear my ink pads out of the way a bit. So what I might do is colour some of these bits up. So I'm going to take, I think, my watercolour pencils first, and I'm going to colour this little flower. So I'm going to tear this out. Like that. Pop that out the way, and that way it's, you know, it's not all over kind of in the way really. So pick some colours obviously from just the watercolour pencils. So I'm just going to pick, just tip them out slightly. I'm going to pick this pretty pink, maybe a bit of kind of blue, maybe this pink here, and then a kind of bit of green, I think, for the leaves. Yeah, like that. Okay, so I've got my coloured pencils here. So I'm just going to kind of go round and just colour in the flower, you know, with the pencils. And what I'm going to do is hopefully, again, because I'm really no artist here, so, you know, I'm not quite sure that this would be kind of other people's methods, but I'm just kind of pressing quite hard so the colour is quite dark. So, you know, if you press quite hard, it comes out quite dark. Obviously, if you don't press very hard, it comes out like that. just going to see what type of shade this one is. So this one's kind of slightly more reddy, but I might just take that kind of just like that through the middle bits like that, and I might just kind of do a bit of those bits in the middle, and then let me just see how the kind of blue would look. So I might just then kind of just pop a bit of blue kind of around the edges like that, like that. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take my pot of water like that. I've got quite a fine brush here, so I just want to kind of show you those pencils are really fun to use. Okay, and this is just kind of copy paper, so obviously it's kind of just running and not really working as it should. But if I kind of take them then, or take the water onto here, which is from the sketch pad, obviously the paper is more you know, working as it should work. So we kind of pop it like this. So we just go around like that. And we can just merge that in a bit more. I mean, I kind of think these watercolour pencils, they're really good for kind of, you know, like a beginner like me, because they're quite easy to use, where obviously you don't have much control if you're kind of painting it out completely, where these kind of give you a little bit more control than you would have with a paintbrush. So, you know, I kind of think they're quite good for beginners, really, is my thoughts. So I'm actually going to get a slightly thinner brush. Oops, no, not thin enough. Hold on. Right. And just go over those leaves like that. Okay, and then, I mean, I think that looks quite pretty now. So probably best that I leave this to dry, and then we might do a couple more kind of details, maybe with some, you know, a Sharpie or something like that. So I'm just going to leave that to dry for a moment, and while that's drying, we'll just bring the image of the tree in, I think. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm just going to kind of tear the tree out from the page, because to me that tree looks very fake in its colouring. So going to kind of tear around it like that. So, and what I might do is actually kind of tear it down here, because I'm not over keen on this part of the tree either. But what I might do is kind of colour it in, and then we can do that afterwards. So, you know, and again, I mean, I'm really just learning as I go here. So I'm going to take some brown for the trunk. Like that. Just colour that first. And then what we could do is more experimentation on the fly here. So let's just open back my little tin of my acrylic paint. Oops. Right. So I think that's brown in there. Oops. There we go. So I'm going to go over the trunk. like that. So that looks okay now. Now, really playing here, okay? So I know I keep saying that, but I can't emphasize enough, you know, these are not techniques that I'm used to doing. So what I've done, I've just picked up a piece of the ink pad. I just want to try it out on this kind of scrap paper here to check out what sort of colours these would come out if I were to use these, obviously on the paper. So what I might do is take a bit of that, kind of colour that. It's not working as well as I'd hoped. I wonder if I'm out of water. No, I've got quite a bit of water in there. So just kind of picking that up like that. I'm trying to do this really, you know, in a neat way to watch. And obviously all I can think is that I just want to dip my finger into that ink pad and put the ink on like that. So I might have to now not be polite anymore, but actually kind of do that. But already I'm much preferring that tree. So let me just pick some up with my finger and see how that kind of is going to come out. Because obviously all I'm really trying to do here is get some different shades of green going. Because obviously, you know, the tree would be a whole multitude of colours, wouldn't it? So, you know, that's really all I'm trying to do here. So, there we go. I have to excuse the noise now because my sister's gone. And now both the children are here, so luckily they're playing downstairs, but they are obviously going to be a bit noisy at times. Right, so I mean, I think that looks so much better already. Okay, now whether or not we want to kind of add any kind of green from here as well, so I'm going to kind of put some here and try and pick some up with the brush, if that makes sense. So we can kind of pop some of that on here as well. Now that to me just looks so much nicer. And actually, that ink pad, it's Impress Emerald was the colour. But if you can see, it's quite smudgy, which for me is working really nicely on this tree. Because obviously I was quite worried that it was looking very stamped, if you see what I mean. And, you know, obviously I'm not trying to lie and pretend I've drawn it. But, you know, having it looking more stamped is much better. So, yeah, I'm quite liking the smudge kind of effect there that it's having. And I'm just now kind of, yeah, just trying to kind of get a bit more kind of effect going on here. Oops. Like that. I mean, that looks so much nicer, doesn't it? Well, I think it looks so much nicer, you know, because it now kind of is taking on a bit more of an effect of a tree, which, you know, is the desired look, isn't it? So I'm just going to pick up a little bit more green. So I'm pressing quite hard with this green, so as I have kind of lots there to pick up. I mean, again, I'm not an artist, so, you know, again, there may be much better techniques than this, you know. But hopefully, you know, what I'm trying to do really, other than just play and have a bit of fun myself, is just to kind of encourage and kind of show that, you know, I'm no artist, and so, you know, kind of you don't have to be to kind of have a bit of a play with paints and things, you know, because actually you can kind of cheat and get similar effects by using stamps. So all I've done here is just take my vintage photo like that. Right, so that looks really cute to me. So again, I'm going to leave this to dry for a few minutes because it's obviously quite wet at the moment. So I'm just popping that to one side. So we can bring our flower back, which actually is still not particularly dry, unfortunately. But again, I quite liked that technique of picking up the ink from here. So I might just now do that again for this flower. So I might need to pour a little bit more water into my little pot here. Okay. Get my brush kind of wet there. Right, so, you know, personally I'm not loving how this flower's looking. It looks pretty fake, I think. Now that could be because I added the blue, but I'm not sure. So I might add a little bit of the vintage photo just to the leaves, because maybe that will kind of help to make it look a little bit less kind of fake. Might even add a bit here in the middle of the flower. Might even try and cover up that blue because that was definitely obviously a mistake really. I thought it was going to kind of, you know, smudge in more and become a bit more lilac-y, but sadly it's not. So instead I'm going to try and get rid of it. Right, so this is how not to do it, obviously, because I'm not making a very good job of this. So there's some tips there how not to do it. So I'm going to again leave this flower to dry for a little while, and then we can kind of come back to that. Well, to be honest, it might not be salvageable. So let me just pop my lid on the water before I have an accident and kind of spill it everywhere, because that wouldn't be too great. So let's have a bit of fun now with some collage and things, because you know, maybe the painting is not really my kind of thing. Although I do really like the tree, so, you know, let's kind of have a look and see what kinds of things we can do with, you know, using these bits as a collage. So let me get some paper to use as my kind of background sheet. So here we go, and this is just so that I've got something to kind of work from. Now, because obviously the bird cage has been playing on my mind recently, I'm going to have to kind of incorporate that on this page, because yeah, I just I'm going to have to really. So I might kind of have that sort of running down the edge here. I quite like the this little flower piece, so I might just tear that out. Like that. And then some of the script stamp. We'll just have a piece of that somewhere. So I'm just going to pop that to one side. So I brought with me some other bits and pieces. So I've got some sheet music and I've got some lace and some scrapbook kind of papers. So I really quite like this piece here. Well, to be fair, I quite like all of that. So I may have to kind of have that a bit as it is. And this is some vintage verse. That's the word I was looking for. So perhaps I will work round from this edge. Probably best. So I'm going to tear slightly closer to that, like that. And the funny thing is, obviously these collages, they're very popular, aren't they, at the moment? And, you know, I know that kind of Rachel at Roxy Creations is brilliant at doing them. And, you know, obviously Ayozie has done, you know, quite a few of them and things. I think Gail, I've seen her do some. And they look dead easy. And you think, oh, well, that looks really easy. But strangely enough, when you actually come to do them, they are really not that easy at all. Because actually getting the pieces to kind of look quite right seems quite tricky, I think. So I've got some other scrapbook papers here from my very vintage kit, which, again, depending on how I upload the videos, I may or may not have already done, you know, a launch video for it. But these are some of the pieces from that, and they just are laying around on my desk, but they just happen to be perfect colour-wise. So just going to kind of tear them down. Like that. And this just is fluke, actually, that these just happen to be the right colours. So there we go. Oops. Oh, go down, go down. Now, you see, to me, Ayozie's looked absolutely brilliant, and I really apologise because my pronunciation is absolutely shocking. So I am aware that each time I pronounce her name, it's coming out slightly different. So I really apologise. That is not intentional. Pronunciation is just not my thing, which, again, you may have noticed that. Have you watched my channel a few times and seen my awful pronunciation of all number of things, really. Oops. Right, I quite like that. So what I might do is glue that into place, just so that it's not moving around anymore. And then I've got a little bit of commitment. Actually, I'm going to glue that down at the bottom so that I've got a kind of piece that's finished. And then I'm going to move this down, I think. Like that. Now, I'm wondering whether I want to fill in the bird cage or not. Probably not, because it's probably quite nice to leave it. So I'll just glue that on, because we can always kind of fill it in afterwards, can't we? So, yeah, the collaging, it's surprisingly quite difficult to actually then pop things down and kind of decide where you want things. So, you know, don't underestimate it kind of when watching people's videos, because it's actually much trickier than it looks. Is my thinking. So there we go. I'm going to pop the book page there. Like that. I've got this piece here and this piece here. So what I'm going to do is kind of like muck about now with some more bits before I glue anything else down, I think. So could have this here. That's quite nice. Maybe we'll have another one of our kind of you know, stamped things kind of over there. Now I wanted to use this beautiful piece here, so I'm probably going to tear that down. Let's see. Now what I should have done really was obviously have that in this corner, but I didn't obviously think in advance. So I might pop that there. So I just glue that down. Like that. Like that. And then I'm going to fill this gap, I think, with that, or could actually have kind of just a kind of more empty piece, really, like there. So maybe I'll pop that down. Like that. So if I were to have this here and that there, so I need to think what to put here. So what I might do is have this one here, like that. Yes, I quite like that. So I'm going to go for that and stick that down before I can change my mind. So there we go. So I've just stuck that one down there, like that. And then I'm going to pop this one, I think, here somewhere. So, whoops. I just kind of have a look. We could have this here somewhere. And what I could do is kind of edge that somehow in some pink, or put some pink in the middle. So do I dare kind of attempt to kind of fill that in? So what I might do is I might just go straight for this with a bit of water. So like that. There we go. Just kind of colouring in the ends here. And then what we could do is kind of just go roughly around the edge in a bit more pink. And if we can kind of rub that in a bit. Oops. Oops, that's my hairs from my brushes are now kind of coming out all over there. That's not very good, is it? It's obviously my cheek brushes that I've been using. Right, again, I've now ruined this, I think, because it now looks very bright pink to me. So I don't really want to use that now. And because it's now quite soggy from the brush, I'm going to leave that to dry because, you know, I might be able to use that somehow else. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull in something else, I think, from my very vintage kit. So I've got this image here. I'm going to tear off the kind of edge, which is, you know, kind of like a postage stamp. So it's a bit kind of like harsh edges, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So, right. Okay. So I quite like how that's looking. So I'm going to go for that, glue that down. Like that. I'm going to glue this one down here. Like that. I'm going to pop this one down before I spoil this at all. So there we go. And then this one here, I want here. Right, I quite like this piece here, so I'm going to kind of pop that down, I think. Like that. There we go. Yeah, they're certainly not a 5-minute thing, these collage pages. They're actually quite intensive and you know, quite time consuming to do, strangely enough. Right, there we go. And then I'm just going to tear around again where that was a kind of like more like a postage stamp around the edge. So we've got more flower, less kind of postage stampy looking bit. I'm just going to tear this bit off because it was the like the core of the paper. So I didn't really want that there. I can have that there like that. So now I just have these areas left to fill. So again, I'm just hunting around my desk. I've got this kind of just like piece of envelope really. So we could have that somewhere, because that just adds a little bit of kind of different texture and a bit of a kind of different dimension. So let me just see how that would look if we had that kind of here and had that here. I mean, that's actually quite nice, I think, to add a little bit of something different on there. So what I'm going to do is kind of maybe fill in some of these other spaces like that. Nope, quite big enough there. Well, I guess it would be if I move that down. So we could have that kind of there. I'm going to tear this so that we've got a torn edge and it's more in keeping. So we just kind of have that. Actually, tear this around like that. That's better. That's better. Right, so again, I'm going to try not to overthink this and just get gluing. I dread to think how long this video is going to end up being by the time I've finished. It's because I've had to stop obviously several times to kind of go and check on the children and things like that. I've lost track now completely of how long I've actually been on here filming, so I dread to think how long the actual total is going to be by the end of it. Right, I'm going to glue this one down. Like that. I do want to have this here, but I need to obviously fill that little space. So again, I'm just really just reaching for any scraps that I've got anywhere, just to kind of fill spaces. So again, I'm just going to tear that down. And then we can pop that there. That kind of fills that space a little bit. So, and then actually what we could do, oh, that's probably a bit strange. So we'll pop that there and we'll pop this one here. Right, there we go. We have a plan. So I'm just going to pop that there, like that. Okay, so we've got those pieces down there. I'm going to pop this piece down here at the edge, like that. Okay. Now, I'm just going to bring my piece back and see whether there's anything else that we can use. Right, we've got these butterflies, which I had actually forgotten about. So I'm going to take one of them, and just tear around those. Now, we have got the frame. I'm not sure whether the frame is going to go because it's got the green, but again, I'm just tearing that out, and obviously we've got this butterfly here. So again, I'm just going to tear that out because we might or might not be able to use that. So let's have a look. Have a look. I do quite like that there. The only thing that I do have a bit of an issue with is it looks like all of my stamped bits are down there, and then all of the like printable bits are kind of up there. So what I'm going to do is just see what else I've got here that I could use. I could pop that there. Oh, that looks really nice. So if I just tear this like that, and then this piece we can have popped there. And again, I'm just going to tear this slightly down. So let's pop this down. You see, and I thought this was going to be such a quick video, you know, and actually now it seems so long ago, but actually I've done the, what do you call it? The background pages as well, which was obviously another part of the video. So, I mean, actually by the time I do really join it all together, I dread to think how long this is going to be. So I'm going to apologise in advance because it's obviously going to be absolutely hours and hours long. So, well, not hours, but it's going to be a lengthy video. So I will apologise now in advance. Right, we get in there. So I have these bits here. I wonder if I shift that over slightly. I need something kind of behind there. So, and again, I thought I'd brought plenty of stuff with me. So, I'm going to pop this down here. So let's pop that down there. And then what I'm going to do, and this is not, I'm sure, how I've seen Rachel and Ayozie do it, but I'm going to kind of fill in gaps, I think, afterwards. So actually I put that up there, and then I might have to kind of fill in a couple of gaps afterwards. Here we go. I'm going to pop this here. So I just glue this down. Like that. And then that there. We've got this piece here. So we're looking for a piece here. And obviously, actually, let's have that butterfly up there. Right. Nearly done now. So we are actually getting somewhere now. Right, let's have a look. This might be too small. Well, it might be okay. So again, I'm going to tear this off. So it's no longer got the kind of stamp looking harsh kind of edges. Like that. Oops. So I might be able to pop this here with the butterfly kind of over there. So I need now a couple more pieces. So I think I'm going to use some sheet music. So I just grab another sheet of sheet music. Whoa. Now dropping everything on the floor. So here we go. Let's have a look and see whether if we pop this here, not there. Right, so all I'm going to do is tear down this piece here, because otherwise I'm not really that keen on that kind of straight edge. So I'm going to glue this down just before I can kind of obviously change my mind. Oh, it's lucky that I said that we were going to do the other one, you know, separately, because I dread to think how long this would have taken doing the two kind of running parallel at the same time. You know, I don't think I would have got through this at all. Right, that's that. I'm going to have this piece here and these butterflies here, and I think I have that one kind of here, and then I'm just going to pull this piece back. So what I might do is just have a bit of kind of the plainish kind of background tucked in somewhere like that. Oops. Or we might want to swap those. That might be better, doing them that way round. Right, so let's quickly stick those down. check that I didn't want to kind of move that over there. No. Right, so I'm just going to stick this one down here. Going to pop that one down there, pop that one there. So if I were then to have that like that, that like that, that one there, and then I've just got a tiny weeny space there for something. So whether or not we could just fill that in with another piece of music, sheet music. I did also bring some doily, which now I've not used at all. Right, I like that. So I'm going to pop this one down here. Going to pop this one down here. This one we're going to pop down over there. Like that. And then we're going to have this here. And I wanted to cover up the yellow that was on this one, just because for me, otherwise we didn't really have any other yellow on the page. So, you know, I just didn't feel that that kind of really fit in very well there. So there we go. I'm going to just pop this down here. Move it over slightly, otherwise you couldn't really see that butterfly. Okay, and then the last piece was that piece there. So I just take that and stick that on here. There we go. Oops. Hurrah! Right, so obviously for me that took significantly longer than I had expected. I'm not quite sure why it took me quite so long, but I'm yeah, quite surprised that it took so long. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to trim around the edge of that, and as you can see, the piece of paper that I just used to kind of stick it all on, it's just a piece of paper where I had been printing the symphony orchestra kit while I was kind of designing that and creating that. Whilst I was obviously trying to get that quite right. Oops. So I'll just trim it along the edges. There we go. Oh, in case you're wondering, my husband's home now. So in case you thought, gosh, she's not checked on those children for ages. He's home now. So, you know, the children are being watched and supervised by an adult now. So there we go, just trim along here. There we go. Right, what do we think? So I really like it, actually. I really do like it. So it took a long time to get there, but I'm pleased with how it looks now. So yeah, hope that you had fun, and I will hopefully come back to do another video in this same style. We obviously have the tree that we haven't used yet, so I'm keen to use that, and we obviously have this shade of background that we haven't used yet, although at the rate that this video took, you know, I'll have to set aside a considerable amount of time to do it. But right, we do have one finished. So I hope you like it, and I hope that you did have a little bit of fun there. So thanks very much for watching, and I will see you all again soon. Bye.